Broadcasting live from the Underdark Rift on the plane of Dungeons and Dragons. It's Tap Tap Concede. Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of Tap Tap Concede. I am Wheeler. I will be your host. What up? But I'm not alone. I'm joined by Nelson.
Hi there.
I'm joined by Cameron. And we got James on tech. And if I'm in this seat, you know what it means. It's Scryfall Roulette, the best filler that your money can buy. And if your money is buying this, well, you're probably supporting us over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Because of all of that, we're able to do all this and even more.
Thanks so much for that.
That's really cool and good. Keep doing it. Please and thank you. And also, cardkingdom.com. Use cardkingdom.com/LRR when you make your order. And say button, please. While supplies last, you get a small button that currently says pack 3 time to pivot.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Although that may be atemporaneous now, ahistorical.
Oh, yeah.
That might be a legacy button.
Yeah.
We may have sunsetted that button.
Yeah. So currently the button might read,
My other thespian stage is a Dark Depths, or my other Dark Depths is a thespian stage.
Nice.
There we go.
yeah, or maybe it's some kind of Bloomborough meme. Who can say?
Nice to meet you, etc.
Keep the et cetera in there.
It's
Nice to meet you, et cetera.
etc.
So,
We're
yeah.
Magic players.
Yeah. Like I don't believe it was, this is a pregame conversation. I don't believe it's nice to meet you. I'm not wishing you good luck. I don't want you to have good luck.
I don't want to have good luck.
I hope I win and this match ends as soon as possible, etc.
And unfortunately, we are Magic players, which means that we are going to have to talk about Magic cards.
Hey. I may have been a Magic player. I may continue to be a Magic player whenever this episode goes up. Maybe I've gotten better since then.
Allegations of being a Magic player are flying left and right.
Can you censor my voice when I say Magic player? There's a big beep right in the middle.
We'll just asterisk out the A.
Yeah. We're doing Scryfall Roulette. We've done this a couple times before. It's real straightforward. James is going to hit random on Scryfall. It'll then produce a card that will be on screen. We're then just going to talk about this card for a couple of minutes and then move on. We'll share stories, thoughts.
Did we just steal this whole show idea from Shivam?
Nope.
Okay.
We have production value.
Fair enough.
Singular.
Singular.
Well, if you like Shivam's Twitter, though, it's like, hey, a whole bunch of that all in a row.
I don't know how rude I want to be to my co-host. Not you.
Me?
Shiva.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how rude
You know
I want
how
to be
rude
to
you want to
you.
be to me,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's weird that
Yeah.
you're still figuring that out.
Yeah, you know how rude I want to be to you,
I do.
idiot. We all get a veto as well.
Yeah.
Although James found it necessary to point out that you guys don't even use the veto. It's more of a gag. No, we use it to not talk about bad cards, James, or good cards. We use it to not talk about cards printed after 2020.
James, the whole show is a gag. So if one part of the gag is a gag, then that's gag.
This is kind of the gag manga of Tap Tap Concede.
Yeah.
Can we have a beach episode later?
Umi.
As long as there's bottles in it.
Speaking of, James, first card, please. Second Sight. 2 and a blue. It's an instant from Darksteel. Choose one. Look at the top 5 cards of target opponent's library, then put them back in any order. Or look at the top 5 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. With Entwine for a blue. If you don't know what Entwine is, you can choose both if you pay the Entwine cost.
If you do know what Entwine is, don't forget to take your back pill.
Imagine paying 4 mana EOT to scoop.
Yeah. Like, this card literally costs the same as Fact or Fiction, or it's harder to cast if you pay the Entwine. But even at 1 mana less, it's like, yeah, why would you ever want this?
Just looking at the top 5 of their deck. Oh, crap. Top 5 of my deck. Oh, crap.
Yeah. And 5 islands.
Right? Yeah. like I can just lose the game without casting this
yeah,
card.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the top 5 of your opponent's deck, and with the ability to look at the top 5 of your deck, just take the top 5 of your deck, put them in the deck box, take the rest of the cards, put them in the deck box too.
Yep. Take your second sight, unsleeve it, leave it on the table.
So there's a card called Index.
Yes.
It costs 1 blue at sorcery that lets you look at the top 5 of your
Yeah.
deck. Put them back in any order. Terrible card.
We
Yeah.
hate it.
How many cards for 1 blue mana would you have to look at in order for you to play one of these cards?
Okay, so right away, like 60, that card would be really good. Just stack your deck.
Stack your deck?
Stack your deck 1 blue. I think I would play that card.
Yeah, for sure.
But so okay, so we agree.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I like
We
starting-
agree. We
I like
agree.
starting at the end.
Yeah.
So now it's like
as Churchill said, we've already established what you are. Now we're just haggling.
right. So in theory, 15 should be about the same as 60 if you're playing like 55 lightning bolts, 55 chromoxes, 55 arcbound ravagers, 55 frogmites, whatever. It's like that should be about the same. So maybe I would still pay 1 blue to look at like 12.
Okay, 12 cards.
Top
Cameron?
10. Would you do top 10? Go ahead. Remember, 60, yes. 5, absolutely not.
I could see decks
mean-
playing for top 10.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm not
Index
sure
is
I'm willing to pay
versus-
1 blue mana to just own myself in front of someone.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Where you're like, oh, I've done the math wrong, and now I know I'm not going to draw my 4th land until, if I've looked at 12, I'm not going to draw my next land until 9 more turns. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I
I have goozled myself in front of all of these people.
This effect also just kind of sucks. Like, a part of Magic's
annoying.
fun. It's
Yeah.
not fun.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I know how this game's going
That's
to go,
right.
maybe.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah.
If you play these cards, you definitely do always concede sooner.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're just like, oh, I can see the future.
Like,
Yeah.
rearranging your opponent's deck is kind of funny as, like, a one-time, like,
Yeah.
troll kind of thing in, like, Commander
Yeah.
or whatever. But
Well, it was good with
We
Chase
all
the
love
Mind
a Fate
Sculptor.
Seal.
Yeah, Fate Seal.
yeah, Fate Sealing's great. But I mean to, like, look at your deck and be like,
Yeah.
like, not being able to put them on the bottom.
Yeah, not being able to put them on. It's so wild that this card is from the same set as
Skull
Clamp.
Clamp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sorry,
Aether Vial.
I was trying to say Skull Clamp, and I was trying to remember not to swear in front of it, and I physically fell apart trying not to swear in front of Skull Clamp. But yeah,
Old Clamp.
yeah, but also Second Sight.
Yeah.
The art has been growing on me though. It's not my favorite painting in Magic by a long shot, but Memnarch just looks so conniving. Like the facial expressions, actually, they slayed it.
So ugly.
Yeah,
Just Memnarch. I mean, I know
Yeah.
you're a big Memnarch fan.
I like Memnarch, but Memnarch is ugly. That's part
Yeah,
of-
all the
their
Lumen
MO.
Grid, they all look so stupid.
Yeah.
Their hats are ridiculous.
yeah. They're weird people.
James, next card, please. Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Skirk Drill Sergeant. 1 in a red for a 2/1 Goblin from Legions, uncommon. Whenever Skirk Drill Sergeant or another Goblin is put into a graveyard from play, you may pay 2 in a red. If you do, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a Goblin card, put it into play. Otherwise, put it into your graveyard. I've got thoughts.
Okay. This seems expensive for goblins.
Yeah.
It is a bit pricey. I
Is
can't
this-
believe I'm talking about this card twice in 1 week.
Is
wow.
this Goblin Future Sight?
No.
That's Goblin Recruiter is Goblin
Okay.
Future Sight
Okay.
in a way.
But
But
this card's much more fair and balanced than like all the other popular Goblin cards, But like anytime this card is like correct to play in the format or whatever, like during the days when like you would see this card on the tables, it's like it's a good feeling. Go
Well,
ahead.
there's
Go ahead
two-
with your thoughts. Yeah.
yeah, not to plug Sheepman Wheeler Love Magic, but we did talk.
I wanted
about-
to do that anyway.
Okay, thank you. We talked about this set, and I talked about this card as being like a sleeper card because like not a lot of people play this in Commander in their Goblin deck, which is wild to me because it has the templating of a card from 2003, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of it or another Goblin, not just ones you control. So if
Right.
you're
Right.
playing
Oh,
against
yeah.
other
Goblins,
goblins,
yeah.
if
Right.
like your opponent's Goblin dies, you're like pay 3. Here's a Muxus or
Nice,
whatever.
Yeah.
And also it triggers off of tokens,
Mm-hmm.
and Goblins
Yeah.
makes a bunch of tokens.
Yeah.
And so sacrificing those tokens potentially to something like Skirk Prospector that sacks goblins to add mana, like you could just go off and churn through your deck with this card.
I like it in the context of Commander, where like mana is a bit more available to everybody, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Whenever I'm playing across this card in Casual or Canadian Highlander, which like doesn't show up very often, it doesn't usually make the cut in the Canadian Highlander Goblins deck anymore. But sometimes you're playing against someone who's sort of new or just like playing their pet cards.
Yeah.
And just like anytime, and it was in a dual deck, so I think that's probably where I've encountered the most. Anytime this thing hits, even if I'm across the table, I'm stoked for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Very fun card.
Also, great art.
Yep.
Well done, Alex Orliandelli.
Alex Ho has a lot of bangers from this era.
Nice.
You know, I'll have to go see Gatherer.
Japes. I have got one of my favorite Magic stories of all time involving this card. It is Gideon of the Trials. 1 white, 3 loyalty, Planeswalker Gideon. +1 until your next turn, prevent all damage target permanent would deal. 0 until end of turn. Gideon of the Trials becomes a 4/4 human soldier with indestructible that's still a Planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to it this turn. And 0, you get an emblem with as long as you control a Gideon Planeswalker, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. A very cool design for Gideon, if I may.
Really turned the corner on Planeswalker design. We started seeing Planeswalkers show up in different spots.
This is like a PTQ or an RPTQ. And it's Ixalan Amonkhet. And I'm playing this like black-white vampires deck that was winning some stuff on Magic Online that looked kind of cool and was just like pretty low budget. It had like tokens and stuff.
Whatever,
yeah. And so I'm playing that deck. And this is round 1. And this is like the first like set of plays in the tournament effectively where I have to actually make a decision.
Okay.
And my opponent attacks with their animated Gideon of the Trials. And I have like a board of creatures. And I'm like, oh, I'll just double block and trade.
Oh.
So I double block this Gideon and I go like trade. And they're like, well, it prevents all the damage. And I'm like, oh, right, cool. I put my creatures in the graveyard. And then I go, Revolt triggered. Fatal push your Gideon of the Trials.
Oh.
No.
And he's like, well, it's indestructible. And I go, oh, okay. Lose that game because I just 3-0'd myself.
Yeah, 3 for 0.
3 for 0'd myself.
Oh.
Win the match. Win the tournament.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Speaking of turning the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like this card, when it came, and still now, really, like there's no other Planeswalker that's just like, oh yeah, emblem, by the way, you have to kill, your opponent has to kill Gideon before they kill you. Like, killing you is like a classic way to deal with your annoying Planeswalkers, right?
Yeah.
So like this one really sort of threw a wrench into that plan. And also just only 3 mana. Very cool Gideon. I don't know. Big fan.
Big fan.
Still sees play in
Yeah, still pops up
Canadian
in
Highlander.
Canlander.
I'm not sure if other formats or not.
A lot of play in Gladiator.
Gladiator, yeah.
Japes. Ooh, Undertaker. 1 and a black for a 1/1 human spell shaper. It's a common from Mercadian Masks and has pay a black, tap, discard a card from your hand, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. The weight of death is heavy but not immovable. Wait, immovable? Why did I just add extra syllables there? Anyways, ignore that last little bit. Undertaker?
I always love the spell shapers. I love the concept that they're like casting a spell or turning a whatever for you into their effect. I think that's a cool idea. And yeah, no, I mean this seems like it could have shenanigans, extremely slow, expensive shenanigans.
In practice, it feels like if that's the only effect on the card, then you've stapled like the, what the card does. You staple the whole card's function to the part of the game where you're willing to also pitch a card to achieve that, which I think is relevant. Like it's nice having powerful effects tied to pitching your spare lands in the late game, but in the early game, you're not necessarily willing to do that, or like you need all your cards to advance your game plan. So it's awkward. I think there's a reason that we haven't seen Spell Shaper come back year after year as like one of the classic ways to deal with mana or Magic's, crucial flaw of like needing lands and spells, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got two big reasons for why that is.
Mm-hmm.
One, it's not exactly fun if your game plan just turns into I'm going to do the exact same thing over and over and over again.
Right. If the effect of the spell shaper is good enough, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so if it's good enough and you're incentivized to just this card is one of the better ones in that, right? Turning your lands into creatures that have died is great, right? Or turning other creatures into
better creatures.
Yeah. I'm just going to cast my Sarah Angel every turn.
Cool.
Right.
Great. Annoying, but okay, because like you said, this card's not doing much up front. But when you get to there's a spell shaper that is just Stone Ring.
Yeah, there's Seismic Mage.
Seismic Mage.
Yeah, really awkward looking picture on the person's face.
There's one that is.
I remember Latula, a friend of mine, playing kitchen table Magic with Latula,
yeah.
and it was just like, is this a fireball every turn?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
If the spell shapers are good, there's a fog one, Dawnwalker.
Really?
It's like.
Well, I mean, also Waterfront Bouncer.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of play, I want to say.
Yeah, that card was hot.
I've played Waterfront Bouncer in Canadian Islander,
Same
actually.
here, yeah. If it gets too good, you just only want to do that ability, and then if you're only doing that ability, it's not exactly interesting gameplay.
Right.
And so
Interesting period of design.
yeah. Japes. Fiend Hunter.
Speaking of old templating.
Yeah. 1 white for a 1/3 uncommon from Innistrad. It's a human cleric. And when Fiend Hunter enters the battlefield, you may exile another target creature. And when Fiend Hunter leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
As these are two different clauses, if you bounce Fiend Hunter with the ETB trigger on the stack, you simply exile whatever it was that it was targeting.
And then you get to put something else underneath when it comes back in.
Yeah. Drafting this with the flashback bounce card. What was it? It was some kind of rescue.
Saving Grasp?
Saving Grasp,
Right,
yeah.
that deck.
Yeah. 1 white and then or was it 1 blue and then it flashed
1
back
blue
for white?
flashback for white.
Yeah, so you could do it twice, yeah.
Yeah.
That you could pull that off in draft. Gorgeous move. And then the set that came out right after Dark Ascension brought us Restoration Angel. So then that became like this deck in Standard where you're flickering your Fiend Hunter and putting your Restoration Angel under it, and they're I had to explain how the stack works at F&M multiple times. I built cards with the effects on it.
Yeah, do you want to make a
combo too?
Do you want to make a 14-year-old never play Magic again?
What do you mean? I don't get it back.
So Banisher Priest, I think, has 2 templating changes. One, they were okay, you're not targeting your own stuff. That's not what we meant for you to do with this. So stop doing that. You can only target your opponent's stuff. And 2, of course, it's 1 ability, not 2. So
cowards.
Whenever they print this kind of effect now, they don't let you tricky perma-exile your opponent's stuff or tuck your own stuff for value shenanigans. You just get to exile something for as long as the Banisher Priest is there.
The standard deck that came out with this was extremely cool to me. It used Fiend Hunter, Cartel Aristocrat, which happens to be a human that sacrifices a creature, and Angel of Glory's Rise, which when it ETBs, it returns all humans from the graveyard to play. So you'd return all the humans back, Fiend Hunter exiles the Angel, Cartel Aristocrat sacrifices everything, and then it sacrifices the Fiend Hunter, which brings the Angel back into play, and then rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
That's just... I kind of miss when we had that. That's in Standard. Remember when Standard had stuff like that?
Cool combos.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. The season before that, we had Splinter Twin and Birthing Pod. You could Birthing Pod into Splinter Twin.
Anyways,
in Standard.
Shieldred the Apocalypse, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh. I didn't draw my removal spell immediately. Guess I'm dead.
Whoops. Japes!
Just kidding. I have a Fable on top. It'll be fine. Hey, nothing but bangers today on Scryfall.
Abyssal Persecutor.
Bangers in second sight.
2 black for a 6/6 demon. It's a mythic from World Wake. It has flying, trample, and you can't win the game, and your opponents can't lose the game with iconic chippy art.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
This card looks so cool, and it's fun to play, and it it never really matched up with like a sacrifice outlet that wanted to be in the same deck as this enough to make it like a real thing, right? Like, I don't think I can think of an Abyssal Persecutor deck where I was like, yes, clearly, this is what I would play in this format.
Yeah, kind of got out, like, that never really showed up, and just the way to get rid of it, like, people tried. But it was very funny that Doomblade was just a card that got played, like Doomblade and Smother.
Right.
And so you can't Doomblade this and you can't Smother this. And
yeah,
you're kind of like,
Like, if this card was printed today, would it be an 8/8?
Yeah. I was thinking, like, this needs... Like, wasn't this in standard with Baneslayer?
Or at least like a 7/5.
Right, like...
yeah.
Yeah, it was in the same standard environment with Baneslayer Angel. That's right.
Like,
for only one more mana, you get like more of everything except power toughness.
Yeah, and it just blocks it.
Yeah,
forever.
Yeah,
and
specifically
gains life
blocks
off
this.
it.
Yeah, even with the trample damage, you can't get ahead.
Like,
yeah.
We have seen big black, like, demons with downsides show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a pretty good name. Big black demons with downsides.
Yeah, it's not a bad deck name, but this is like the king of downsides.
Right.
But
like Desecration Demons saw play, like
sure.
top tier standard play.
Yeah, absolutely. I played the hell out of Desecration Demon and similar stats,
you
right?
played the hell out of this card too.
I
right?
played this a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I like this card, but I honestly I haven't played this card that much. I just like owned one and like looking at it.
Yeah, it definitely is the, like, I just enjoy that I have this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
It
this
gives
is like a
me-
beautiful symmetrical kind of card, right?
I wish there was a really succinct way of describing cards that fall into this category of, like, if I, in World War II, and you're just like looking at something in a locket.
Oh,
you just
yeah.
you open it up and Abyssal Persecutor's there. And
Yeah, like you're squatting in a foxhole somewhere.
So
under
Skirk
fire.
Jill charging on one side of the locket and an Abyssal Persecutor
yeah,
on the
just
other side
like
of the locket.
just turning over to someone and be like, "You want to take a look at the gal I got back home?" And it's Exalted Angel.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, a card that summarizes that.
Yeah,
I just,
what
I'm
about
glad
you,
it's
Sarge?
there.
You got a little meow meow back home?
Yeah.
Do you have a wooby?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. And he's just looking at, like, Psychotog.
It's just an unlimited juggernaut.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to tell us about her, Sarge? No, son, that's just for me.
She has to attack every turn, but she can't be blocked by walls.
I'm not. Yeah. She's the only one. You ready to talk about it, Sarge? Sorry, boys. These walls ain't coming down. Only she can knock them over.
Incredible.
Because Juggernaut can't be blocked by walls. James!
Yep.
James!
Yeah, we're just vetoing that.
James!
Oh.
James!
Oh,
No,
you
no,
got some-
no!
Cameron's
We
too
don't have to
traumatized.
talk about Charizard.
No,
if
I
you
mean,
don't
this
want
is
to.
probably... Is this still the top clip on our channel? On the Magic
possibly.
channel?
I think so. It's... I mean, I'm trying... Okay, so I'm going to read the card as is. Because it's Charizard. You make a sub-game. Loser of that sub-game loses half their life. White sorcery from Arabian Nights with Kaya Folio artwork. Iconic artwork here. Players must leave game in progress as it is and use the cards left in their libraries. In their libraries as decks. That's so funny.
Right?
They
Yeah.
use their libraries as
Usually
decks.
you
This
bring
is
your
not-
deck to a game and then it turns
Yeah.
into your library, but this card turns your library
In
back
their-
into a deck.
in their libraries as decks with which to play a sub-game of Magic, italicized. When sub-game is over, players shuffle these cards, return them to libraries, and resume game in progress, with any loser of sub-game having their remaining life points rounding down. Effects that prevent damage may not be used to counter this loss of life. The sub-game has no ante. Using less than 40 cards may be necessary.
Less than 40. It's funny that it's like points out less than 40 in 1994.
Well, Arabian Night Limited is a banger.
That's absolutely not true. But also, I didn't even know if limited was a thing back then.
Not really.
So it's weird that 40 cards is referenced on the card text.
I mean, it wasn't a thing, like,
because your deck has to be 60.
so my knowledge is
Longest time.
mostly secondhand in relation to this because I was two.
Two, yeah.
But it wasn't a thing in the way that we think of draft. But, like,
Yeah.
people did try to draft these
For sure.
Like you would get together with your friends and you each spent your allowance on Magic cards and you would open your packs and like
build decks from those.
That's a lot like Sealed.
Yeah, no,
right?
for sure. Yeah, I mean, the game started off for everybody with Sealed, right? And yeah, early draft environments existed. I'm not sure if when this set was being designed and developed, like when they went to write the card text for Sherazade, I don't think internally at WotC there was draft or limited play or anything with a 40 card deck size.
Maybe
like 4 of restrictions weren't immediately around. Right?
No, I think that was part of. I think that was part of beta rules. I think 4
Was
of.
it?
Yeah, 4 of and 60 card minimum.
That's like I think that's a classic like anachronism of the like you can play 40 Black Lotuses, 40 Plague Rats, 40 that kind of thing. Is that people did that,
Right.
But it wasn't really
Yeah, that was
part of the rules.
I was in
and-
grade 8 and people did that. Yeah.
and it was like a
right.
like a thing that at like the first Gen Con, people trying to do that. They just
Right.
played with whatever cards they had, and
Mhm.
like maybe for the first year or whatever, but not as like rampant as led to believe. And then there's going to be some 50-year-old person be like, everybody at my store did this. It's like, okay, well,
So this card's obviously like basically unique. They've made a couple of silver bordered riffs on it, but this is the only card that creates a sub game in black border Magic, and only one of like 4 total or something sub game cards. There's just a few sub game cards they've made in the unsets, and
Where
it's
is
a
ours?
really
where is it on the set?
well. We
Is
moved.
it behind me?
It might, yeah. Like normally it's on the TV, but we moved, and we might not have gotten it back out yet, or it might not have made the cut on set dressing. Which
No.
would be weird. It's probably just still in a box packed.
This is really good for an audio medium, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah. Sorry, we're trying to find our copy of Sherazade, but it's a weird card. Obviously, not just because it makes a sub game, but also the point, in theory, of casting this spell and winning the sub game is to like direct damage your opponent for 2 white mana. Like that's your prize. You cast it, gambling that you will win the same game you're already playing, but start it again.
Can you fog Charizard?
And then, no, it says it right on it.
Oh, okay.
Can't be Vex.
okay.
Damage can't be used.
Right, okay.
Although maybe you
Reading
can-
the card explains the card.
Yeah, I don't think you can redirect it either because it doesn't really have a target.
No, it's life loss.
It's just life loss. Yeah.
Oh.
So, but it's just so weird that you would bother to do that. You know what I mean? When you could just win the current game you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not really a like competitive card. It's sort of
Well, I mean,
honestly like kind of a gag in and of itself in terms of Magic design.
Yeah.
wasn't like I mean the problem with this card was that it became a competitive card because you would play to draws with it, right?
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that.
It's
but
like
yeah.
it's a tournament rules nightmare.
Right. I think it's just it might have just been banned in tournaments from like the beginning of when tournaments existed.
I think it did find itself on like the first proper like banned list.
banned list. Yeah, because it just doesn't really make sense to bring to a tournament.
Yeah. The flavor's on point though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just keep them from killing you night after night.
Yeah,
by
it's
telling
so
another
evocative.
story. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, the top down design is nailed it.
Yeah.
Chips. Battered Golem. 3
Why is this guy
mana-
in the Chad pose? The Giga Chad pose.
This card
Original Giga Chat.
is an original Giga Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who needs to untap? 3 mana, 3/2 artifact creature. It's a golem, a common from Fifth Dawn. Beautiful, well, not beautiful, but cool Carl Critchlow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Beauty is I think fair to be applied here. There's like some very
Haha,
nicely
Nelson's horny for the golem.
I'm ready to I'll
Bonk.
jump in those big battered arms any day.
So Battered Golem doesn't untap during your untap step, and whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap Battered Golem.
Hmm.
So you can create a couple of infinites with this card.
Right.
Right.
Just like putting anything that can produce an artifact by like tapping the creature comes into play, makes a thing.
Hmm.
I don't know. I remember trying to build combo decks with this and like Clock of Omens,
Okay.
a card that's also from Fifth Dawn of tap to untap artifacts, untap an artifact.
Right.
Mm.
And so you could like tap Battered Golems to untap your Mirror Turbine,
right.
which
Make-
is like an
Oh.
artifact that taps to make a 1/1 mirror token.
Right. It's an artifact too. So if you have something that puts multiple artifacts into play,
Yeah.
the
this
triggers
would
will all
trigger-
stack, so it
Right,
could like
right,
get
right.
in and get some value out of.
It
pocket
triggers
elements in
off of
between.
itself too.
Right.
which is kind of funny.
That
if
is kinda
an opponent
funny.
has like a blind obedience, like everything, or a kismet, I
Comes
guess.
untapped,
Right.
yeah.
More,
Yeah.
more fitting.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you cast this on Magic Online, it enters untapped, but then it just pops up with like a trigger right away, and it's just
Yeah.
like untap this.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's
you're
the same as like
okay.
Grinding Station and all
Right.
those old school ones.
Nice. This also, I think, I want to give a shout out to Limited Play. Like it does have like "Lit Combo with Me" written all over it, right? I think anytime you get something that has a triggered ability and it doesn't involve mana, usually it's like, well, warning bells go off for the deck builders. But 3 mana at common, 3 power.
Yeah, and it goes in any deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this guy was like kind of a house for Limited. Like if you don't have an artifact to cast after combat, just don't attack.
Yeah.
You're just,
Or just cast one on your next turn.
yeah, you're just sitting pretty, trading with anything they're going to cast for like the next 3 turns because it has 3 power, and that's a lot for 2004, especially on a common.
This block MD5 is so funny because there's a lot of like old Magic sets that you can show Zoomers and be like, check out this card. This was like one of the best commons that you
Yeah.
could find or whatever. And people are like, what? What are you talking about? But then they kind of click like, oh, it's an old bordered card. That makes sense.
Right.
There's something about Mirrodin block being the first new
New
block
bordered
with the new
expansion,
border
yeah.
where like the new border will throw off people and you show just like imagine showing a 19-year-old like Volshock battle gauntlets or
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
and be like, this card will end games. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Just gotta put it on your Yotian Soldier, bud.
Yeah, you just put yeah, exactly. Just toss it between your Nurok Familiar and your Terran
Ornithopter.
Ghost. Yeah, Ornithopter.
No, Ornithopter's too good. Sorry,
Too
yeah.
good. Too good.
Thinking of Terra Ghost.
Zoomers
is
look
better.
at Ornithopter and go like, "Oh my god, I draw a card off my Song of Creation or
Yeah.
whatever." Japes. Ooh. 3 tragedies.
From Betrayers? Right.
That's right. 3 black for a sorcery, Arcane. It's an uncommon from Betrayers of Kamigawa. Target player discards 3 cards. As the Kami passed over the village of Mita, the inhabitants relived their 3 most grievous tragedies. Some cried, some raged, some were driven to madness, but the next morning, none possessed the will to fight. Observations of the Kami War.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of stopped making these. After Mind Rot, it's like, you might as well just have something that says target player discards their whole hand.
Yeah.
And they make that for like 7 mana. They've done that once or twice, something like that.
Wit's End.
But it's a really interesting design space, right? How valuable it is to like make someone discard, but they choose, and like what number is attached to what mana cost. The devs have really been playing with Mind Rot over the past several years, but they kind of like they've hit a few sort of like breakout wins, like the Fortell Mind Rot from Kaldheim,
Yeah.
where you can pay in two installments of 2 mana, and you get to draw cards if they don't have cards to discard.
Great.
That one was fantastic. And then Go Blank from Strixhaven, just tack on a like Bajuka Bog with your Mind Rot for free, and turns out that's like
That's not tournament play.
that tons of multiple formats.
Yeah.
Tournament play, and might still. So Mind Rot, yes. Fugue, no. It just turns out spending this much mana on,
Fugue is a good call because this is just one of the like.
Yeah, this is a
This is
reprint
just
basically.
yeah.
The
Kamigawa
Arcane.
block had a bunch of cards that were what they deemed to be like every like almost core set mechanics or like
Right.
staples
Staple.
of what
Yeah.
that color would look to do, like
Yeah.
divination and all that.
Grizzly Bears and Winddrake and stuff.
And
yeah.
they for a lot of them they would tack on Arcane to try and support Arcane, but
Try though they might.
not great.
There was only one card ever really printed with Arcane, and it produced mana.
Desperate Ritual? I mean, what about Glacial Ray?
Oh yeah, Glacial Ray mattered in draft. Didn't it?
Cranial Extraction? That card
Did
was
that-
like card was like
Have you spliced
third-
onto a Cranial Extraction though? That card mattered.
Ooh, have I spliced onto Cranial
But did it matter?
Extraction?
Sorry, that card was a real card. Cranial Extraction was an
Yes.
important card. In fact, Cranial Extraction was like was Cranial Extraction the first Cranial Extraction?
No, Lobotomy was the first
Oh,
Cranial.
right,
well,
right,
Lobotomy, yeah, it was
But it was the first mono black
it
one.
was the first monocolored
Right,
one.
right, right.
And that card, James, if I could ask you to pull up the art for Cranial Extraction from Champions of Kamigawa. This is not to turn this into talk about Kamigawa stream.
Oh, we knew
This
it was gonna happen.
artwork is just so Oh
this
my
is,
god.
This is unstoppable.
Yeah, would play this
Yeah.
video game that this is the cover art of the
So-
box. Even if
so killer.
even if it was just all in Japanese, like the writing, and I'm like at the video store, I just be like, yeah, whatever. Let's take this one home, try it. I think I'm probably gonna like it.
If you don't know what this is, you name a card and you go through the player's graveyard, hand, library, and exile all cards with the same name, basically. There's a bunch of different versions of this effect nowadays.
Yeah, you can
but
get
this
this
is the
for
first
like 2
monochrome
mana,
one.
but they get clues or whatever now.
Yeah. The Stone Brain. I mean, I guess Jester's Cap is probably the first one, but Jester's Cap is just
yeah,
you
for-
find 3 of anything.
They don't have to have
right?
the same name.
Yeah.
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 Jester's Cap is the father of all these effects, though.
I
guess.
have spliced a hideous laughter onto a cranial extraction.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's like 10 mana. That's so much mana.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Let me. That's like the hard control player's dream, right? Let me just kill all the creatures and take out the most important.
I
card
got
at the
rid
same
of their
time.
elves and their tooth and nails.
Incredible.
Chips. Trigon of Infestation. A 4-mana artifact from Scars of Mirrodin. It's an uncommon. It enters the battlefield with 3 charge counters on it. And you can pay a green, and tap to put a charge counter on it. And you can pay 2 generic tap, remove a charge counter to create a 1/1 green insect token with Infect. I like these Trigons.
Yeah. I mean, I think Tumble Magnet, the generic, not a Trigon, but definitely like by artwork and casting cost, kind of honorary Trigon was like the one that saw the most play. But these were cool.
Yeah, I mean, people paid like $4 a pop for Tumble Magnet. I remember that. Do you
Yeah,
remember that
that
regionals?
Yeah, I had
Yeah,
my
well,
tumble
'cause
magnets,
you
but
could
I didn't
also,
bring
like-
spares. Yeah.
The contagion clasp,
Yeah.
right? Proliferate your tumble magnets.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could be proliferating these too, but I think this cycle was mostly just for limited. I don't know if there were any constructed decks that played the Trigons, but this exact same, intention behind the mechanic or whatever. Same like 3 charge counters thing.
Yep.
These cards, when they were in the packs, I remember thinking, yeah, cool, this is like a signal, or like I'm gonna go deep on this card. There's so much value you can extract from it. But then actually playing the games of like Scars of Mirrodin block, like if you had a game where your Trigon of Infestation put in some work, that game was probably miserable. Like even if you won, it was just like you grinded for so long, like you
Yeah.
spent so many turns
Finally,
playing that game.
I've reached 5 mana for my Trigon of Thought.
Yeah.
Now I can draw 2 cards a turn.
And then you have the like classic Adam Sappan game where he's like, excellent, I see a line where I can draw out my entire deck. Good game.
Good game.
Right?
Trigon of Rage was pretty good. The red one. It's because that
You're
cost
right. That
2.
one was cheaper, wasn't it?
Yeah, that cost 2.
No,
and it
yeah. Shout out
activated
to
for
Trigon
2.
of Rage. All the other 4, though, I think the white Trigon also was like kind of.
So I
lowish,
mean, it was prevent damage or some garbage.
Oh, right. That one like wasn't even
Trigon of
playable.
Mending, I think.
This one and the blue one, I can remember playing a bunch in
Yeah.
decks that I'm not proud of,
Yeah.
but went 2-1.
Japes. This isn't a real card.
What is that?
Rot Hulk.
5/5 with Menace for 7, it looks like.
Huh.
Zombie.
Do I want to veto this?
Return up to X target zombie.
This
first
is
versus
from
number
the
of opponents
game.
you
This
have.
is from Game Night.
Night. Nice.
The
Okay.
box sets.
Cool.
I'll read the card. 5 mana 7/7, or sorry, 7 mana 5/5 zombie with menace. It's a mythic rare from Game Night, the bundle where they had 5 individual monocolored decks, and you
Right.
can do like a free for all. When it ETBs, you return up to X target zombie cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of opponents you have. Whoa, this card's messed up. In Commander,
Yeah, it seems like a fun commander card, honestly. Get it into your Wilhelm decks.
and it's not on cast, so it just ETBs.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty messed up.
That's kind of
actually.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time you go for a reanimation effect, it's this one.
You
so
just bring this back to bring back 3 other things.
Yeah, exactly.
James!
Oh.
Mistform Sliver. 1 and a blue for a 1/1 illusion sliver. Common from Legions. All slivers have generic. This creature's type becomes the creature type of your choice in addition to its other types until end of turn. Thoughts on slivers?
Well, let's point out that this is the original sliver typing, which, like old lords, all said all of the slivers.
Which they should have kept, by the way.
When they brought slivers back to look like the predator, they only buffed your stuff. Okay, so slivers in Magic are this thing that like have received a lot of attention and hype Some people love them. Some people hate them. I've always been super meh on slivers. I'm just like, okay, yeah, there's some sliver decks that are good, but like if you brought a deck that contains slivers, I'm not like immediately quaking in my boots or anything.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know where the vitriol comes from.
Yeah, why do people hate slivers or whatever? Like it's
I think probably it's just, you were 15, you were sitting around a kitchen table, the kid with, a $40 allowance per week had a sliver deck.
Yeah.
Right.
Because this
That kicked
predates
everyone's butt.
This predates Commander. Like the
Yeah,
slivers
you're right. You're right.
was
Yeah.
a thing.
In casual 60 card.
Do you think it's like for kitchen table?
Yeah.
Like the slivers pilot, if they're just playing all their slivers and you're not getting rid of their things, you're probably going to be dying pretty quickly because it's just muscle sliver, horn sliver, or whatever. And then if you are like wrathing the board or killing their slivers, then they're on tilt. Like,
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say about wraths, right? Because like sweeping, creature destruction effects are really the antidote to slivers. They haven't made an indestructible sliver, have they? Maybe there's one that's like
there's
you.
There's a legend. There's the 5-mana sliver.
Okay, there is the M15 one or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's way more recent than like the buildup of sliver hate or whatever.
Yeah.
So like I think there's a good Venn diagram where it's just like people who are like on tilt about the slivers deck winning constantly, and then there's like people who put Wrath of God in their deck. And like these two circles don't touch or whatever, right?
That's fair.
Like it's like if you're in this camp, we also know about you that like you didn't want to put a card in your deck that says destroy my creatures too, right? Because like it really just solves the problem for like a pretty small amount of mana.
Maybe that carries over to Commander too, where if there's a slivers pilot, it basically you just know that like the board's going to have to get wrathed,
right,
to keep the slivers pilot in check. But that wrath is going to also affect your game plan, or it's likely to affect other players' game plans. And so that feels bad because you're just like, why are you blowing up? Like, you're blowing up the board to deal with all their slivers, but like I'm losing my 2 creatures and potentially my commander.
Right, I'm losing my engine, or I'm losing my Ord up.
Yeah, well, I mean, like
Stalker or something.
Yeah, I guess so, because if you don't want to lose to the sliver deck, you're going to have to commit to the board in order to not like die if you don't have a wrath available, and then somebody wraths the board and you're like, I was in a good position,
right,
and then the sliver player did this to me. The sliver player did this to me twice.
Right, the sliver player got further ahead than I was and made it so that someone had to cast a sweeper. Yeah, maybe that's frustrating.
Glad we've tackled sliver discourse.
Yeah, it's solved.
It.
We no longer have to do sliver discourse anymore. It's over.
Japes! Scar, hybrid black-red. It's an instant from Shadowmoor. Put a -1/-1 counter on target creature.
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk about it. It's fine. Yeah, there's not much going on with this card, obviously. It's a little like underpowered as a removal spell. I say a little bit for 1 mana, later on in Magic's history, obviously we would get like Fatal Push or Cut Down. So it doesn't deal with a lot of the problem creatures like you want your card to do if that's what it's for. But hilariously, -1/-1 counters on your own stuff was a thing in Shadowmoor Eventide. So this was also sort of this like unexpected instant speed fuel for your Grim Poppet. Maybe that's a bad example because that one just shoots other things, but like I don't know.
Wickerbow Elder.
Thank you for your wicker bow, right? Your wicker bow elder.
Wicker bow wow.
Suddenly, in your Jund Shadowmoor Eventide deck draft, you could blow up their Grim Poppet out of nowhere because you have a wicker bow elder that's a 4/4 without a -1/-1 counter on it, and then Zoop you can
also just muck their persist. Like, haha, you thought you were going to get your persist creature back.
Sure, yeah.
But here you go.
Because the -1/-1 counters had so much related to them in the set, this card was actually kind of playable. It was still like a 23rd. It wasn't like, yes, I got the Scar tabled. James?
Oh! James veto.
Wow.
Veto?
No.
Wow.
No.
We can veto this card.
No,
It's okay.
no.
We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's Mishra's Workshop.
It's Mishra's Workshop.
I'll jump in with my hilarious, got into this card like while it was climbing and then got back out because I was like, I tried it for a little while in Canadian Highlander and I was like, you know what? the one deck that this card is good in is not for me. Poor sweet Nelson. It was like before Kaladesh and before I had really seen, like, I didn't experiment enough with like all the range of Academy decks that could exist and could benefit from Workshop, so I sold mine again, and I low-key regret that. Although I did help pay for my wedding.
That's arguably more important.
Arguably.
Yeah.
Add 3 mana, or
still married.
or
so I
add
guess.
3 people to Nelson's life.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
So this card's kind of intoxicating to tap, like, regularly once you start. It's not quite like Academy intoxicating, because when you have this card and non-artifacts, you're like, oh, well, this was a mistake.
Right, so we're talking about Mishra's Workshop for anyone listening. It's from Antiquities, and it just is a land that says tap to add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. This mana may only be used to cast artifacts, and that has not been updated. It can't activate abilities of artifacts or anything like that. It's just casting artifacts, 3 generic.
It's pretty messed up when you get 4 copies of this card, though.
Right.
And 4 Ancient Tombs.
That sounds like an entire vintage deck right there.
It is.
Nice.
And it lets you play a lot of crap.
Oh, the bad cards will cast.
Yeah. This is, everybody talks about Slash Panther as that, like, this kills Jace, but it's like, I mean, this kills Jace.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I love this artwork. This is one of my favorite pieces of Magic artwork.
Yeah, Kaya Folio.
Another early 90s Caja Folio banger.
I've got this was like for Christmas some number of years ago, and there was a Kaya Folio original artwork Kickstarter going on. And I remember my mom was like, what am I getting you for Christmas? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't need anything. Like, what do you mean? Don't give me anything. She's like, I got to get you something. What about something for the house? And I'm like, well, I thought about getting some Magic, like, you know, the classic streamer. Like, if I don't have Magic artwork in my background, how do people know that I played this game for a living?
Right, exactly.
And there was a massive signed Kaya Folio print available in this Kickstarter with like only a couple of slots left, and I got it. And I remember telling my mom, like, this is what it is, blah, blah, blah. You know, does this work? And she was like, yeah, this works fine. This is pretty, Ben. Like, my mom was like, oh, it's pretty artwork. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah,
Hooray.
It's cozy. It's nice. It's warm. It's very, gives me very, like, I don't want to say Bakshi vibes, but like I get, you know, the background of like some animation nerd's favorite movie.
Right.
It's
Right.
just like a shot of this, and yeah, it just looks so good.
Real powerful card.
Yeah, James.
This is your last card.
Okay.
All right.
This is James's last card.
It's a good one.
Gilded Drake. 1 and a blue for a 3/3 Drake. It's a creature. Rare from Urza's Saga. It has flying. And when Gilded Drake comes into play, you exchange control of Gilded Drake and a creature an opponent controls. Or you sacrifice Gilded Drake. This card's like $1 billion solely because of CDH.
Right, it's on the reserve list, right?
That too, yeah.
And,
sorry, that's a big driving fact.
And yeah, it's important for just stealing enemy commanders. Is that what it's for? I don't actually know. I think I have one, actually. I don't really play it ever.
Yeah, I don't think I think I tried playing this in like a Canlander deck.
Right.
Like way back in the day, is like I'll steal their creature and I'll bounce my Gilded Drake.
Right. Feels good. Feels smart.
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah, you have to make sure they control it, or the exchange doesn't work. If anyone's brewing or whatever, you got to actually give them a 3/3 flying. Which for 2 mana, sure, you probably are getting something that's more mana than that, and might be better than a 3/3 flying. The problem I've always had with this card for a 2-player game is that like a 3/3 flying is still like a thing that kills you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know that the 2 mana is worth it. Like the 2 mana discount from control magic is worth it most of the time. That's my problem with this card, and I've just never had a huge opinion of it. But for 4-player games, yeah, go off, Kings.
This feels like a card though that I look at it and I go like, this really can't be just one of the better options. Like I guess because it's blue and a creature, like you can get more toolboxy for CDH and like finding it. But I look at this, I'm like, come on, there's got to be something better.
Yeah.
All right, James.
Wow.
Fanatical Fever. 2/2 green for an instant from Ice Age. Target creature gains trample and +3/+0 until end of turn.
It really felt like in the early days that, thinking back, maybe I didn't think this at the time, but it's like instead of play testing, let's just make huge swaths in the power level change, right? Like Mind Stone came out not too long after this, and it was like, okay, we know Soul Ring was wrong, so now instead let's try ticking it. We'll tick both numbers in the opposite directions, right? It'll cost 2 and it'll only add 1, and that turned out to be perfect. But this would have been like if Mind Stone cost 4, right? Because it's like Berserk. It doesn't kill the creature, but it also doesn't do nearly as much.
This is the Sisei's ring part of Soul Ring.
Right.
Where, you're just like, oh, God, we can't have this for 1 mana. 4 mana.
4 mana,
Sure.
that's probably right?
Yeah.
So, this was a combat trick from Ice Age. It doesn't kill the creature.
Yeah. I mean, like, the artwork definitely evokes Berserk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
James, I have one request. Can we get one more card from Fallen Empires? I know Cameron loves Fallen Empires, and on these shows I try to not make it a let me fact dump everything I know about this card, but sometimes we get carried away.
That's a card from Fallen Empires.
I mean, I was thinking of something that wasn't one of the greatest spells of all time, but
I was just really happy that I got to write the Hymn to Turak.
Oh,
in a sketch.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've rewatched that recently, actually, from, what was it? Like a Modern Masters? Is that whichever one Turak came out in?
It was it was the Modern Masters PPR.
Modern Masters PPR. And Dale was in there, and Paul and Graham. Yeah.
Who? Oh.
Incredible.
Thalon's Chant. 1 green. It's an enchantment. During your upkeep, you may pay a green or sacrifice Thalon's Chant. Whenever a player puts a swamp into play, Thalon's Chant deals 3 damage to them unless that player puts a -1/-1 counter on target creature they control.
Incredible art by Melissa Benson.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know this is, I believe this is a part of a pairing.
Right.
Like an enemy pairing.
Like
I think Torok's Chant is the actual...
That
the
makes
other
sense to me.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it's a color hoser.
Yep.
There used to be lots of in Magic.
Yes.
Like one of the first cards I opened was Flash Fires, and then it was like Tsunami after that. And I was like, oh, okay, I see how it is. The colors aren't friends.
Imagine opening, ACAB, all Circle of Protections are bastards. But imagine opening like Cop Red and you're playing just with the cards you have against your friend, and your friend just has a mono red deck.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you just don't do anything for the rest of the game.
Yeah, they just play like the Furnace Whelp or the Dragon Whelps into the Shivan Dragons and the Fire Elementals, and they're just staring. They're reading this card for the first time. Like, what?
Yeah. Wild. Color hoses from this era, wild. And they did it for so long.
Yeah.
Like, Boyle is in Modern.
Yeah, they're kind of making a comeback even. There's some like protection from... or hexproof from Knights that were back in recent sets.
Yeah.
Or the one in a blue that only does a red or green permanent, Ether Gust.
Well, does Highlander White Weenie still sleeve up core Firewalker?
Occasionally, yeah.
Depends on the meta.
You just get like that itching in your bones, and it's like time to sleeve up Firewalker and Silver Knight.
Well, here's
tonight.
the thing. They moved on to something much more hateful.
Oh.
They moved on to Sanctifier on Core, which is like a 2-mana, or on Vec. It's like a 2-mana 2/2 pro red, pro black. If red or black cards would be going to the graveyard, haha, idiot, they're not. And then just like other text that just says like, no, you don't get to do your thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always felt like one of the bluntest areas of Magic design, right? Like this doesn't do anything against a bunch of matchups, so when you do encounter that color, you get to like really put the screws on them, like Karma. Yeah.
Well, that was our final card. Unless...
Let us go home, Wheeler.
Okay, that was the final card. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Scryfall Roulette here at Tap Tap Concede. I want to thank Cameron and Nelson for joining me and indulging me. And, of course, thank you to James for hitting the button and other stuff, too. And you, the viewer, for supporting us over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We couldn't do any of this without all of you. And of course, Tap Tap Concede is brought to you by Card Kingdom, cardkingdom.com/LRR. When you make your order, you can go button please, and while supplies last, you can get a small button that may have catchphrase. Great. I love you. Have a good one. Bye.
Store.loadingreadyrun.com.